And welcome to tomorrow. My name is Jamie Higginbotham. We've got a plethora of people joining us today, as per usual. We have got Jared Head. We've also got Ryan Caton sitting up there on the other side over there. But also, we are joined by Liam Kennedy, who did join us a couple weeks ago. But we did want to talk about a really cool and interesting project that you've been working on for quite some time. And that's 4K views, live views from space. So rather than me describe it, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's a really special day for me, so I really appreciate it. Yeah. So what we've done. So I am now. I officially have decided that my title is the coolest title in the world. My title now is Space TV Director, and that's for a company called Sen. If you go to sen.com, you'll find out a little bit more about us from that. But what I've got behind me here are some examples of the 4K video that we have from our first uh, satellite that we're operating, called ETV A1, Earth TV, and that's what is creating these views. You'll see that we've got some example of augmented reality overlays, and this particular satellite is in sun synchronous polar orbit, and we have the ability to capture stuff all around the world, from pole to pole. And the cool thing about this one is that we have several different camera resolutions. This one is a 250-meter resolution, but we can also go down to 10 meters. And I'll show some examples of that throughout the show. In fact, I know I've got something here that might be of interest to some of the folks here. So I'm going to share my screen if I can figure out how to share the entire second screen. I'll have this. How's that looking on your side? Is that coming through okay? So what I've got here is basically a tracking shot from our satellite over Starbase. Now, 10-meter resolution is not 2-meter resolution, but nevertheless, you get some idea of the resolution that we've got going on here. So, obviously, Jamie,
Hang on, before you continue, like let's give context. You're like, oh, this is over Starbase, but like it took me a second to realize what we're looking at, right?
mm,
So there's that little, if you can pause it for a moment, there's that little dot, that white dot. But yeah, if you move your mouse to the left, I think that white dot is production, right?
right.
And then if
hmm
you go further towards the coastline, I think, yeah, right up over somewhere over there. If I got that right, the launch pad's somewhere over there,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
Did I get that right, Ryan? Does that seem about right?
Yeah, that does look about. This is going to look really strange if you cut back to my view right now.
Okay, I'm
But
going to
yeah,
do that just because it does look strange and I think it's hilarious.
that does look about right. Sorry.
Doesn't it look rather spacey, trippy,
Yeah.
with all of those swirly bits on the ground over there? But that's the kind of thing that does impact anyone who's viewing this for the first time. Earth viewing is a bit of an art, especially when you're zoomed in like that, because it's not the way that you normally look at things. And firstly, it's never north is up. So that sort of switches me back onto the other side of this. So, where did this all come from? How on earth does Sen have this platform up here doing this right now? And you brought in live from space. Now, those particular views that I was just showing you there are not coming through live all the time, and that's because it was our first full-on dedicated satellite just to Sen. And um, we're working on the ground infrastructure that would allow us to do live stream from that satellite and future ones that we're going to be launching over the next few years. We have done a few live downlinks, but they've mostly been down over a ground station that's in the Azores, over in Europe. But these ones, like this is an awesome one behind me. If I just that should be known to folks who may be based in England. You can't get this view from the space station, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this was a shot across. Ryan, you might be thinking, "What? That was never happening. That the England was that clear." I agree with you. It's rather spectacularly unusual. And there's some very nice sun glint down at the bottom center of the frame there too. Um, so yeah, a lot of my family exist in that view. I, of course, live in Southern California now, in case anyone wanted to know. But that's where I was originally from. But
Can
yeah,
anyone
so
see Ryan's house in that shot? Can anyone pick it out?
I can see my house. It's right there.
It's
it's
right
right.
Right
there.
there.
It's right. Right.
Right
So
Oh,
there.
I stopped you
yeah.
off. I'm
Right
sorry.
there.
Anyway, it's sort of like right. It's right where you are right now.
Oh, look how
How fitting.
convenient that is. We've overlaid it right on the map.
That's right.
So you've
Mm,
got a satellite that's up there right now
mm.
that is taking imagery, but it is not live all the time, right? So you've got, is that store and forward then, right? It stores a bunch of stuff and then
Yeah,
forwards it to the ground
you,
station?
you you got it. So we have so our partner for this is a company called Nano Avionics. They're based in Lithuania, I think. I hope I got that right. Anyhow, Nano Avionics, they built the spacecraft side of the thing. What Sen did, who are based in London, UK, we built the camera side of that hardware. So everything to do with the camera, the we're not manufacturers of the chip or the lenses, but we contracted with folks to do that side of things. But everything that makes this happen is us. So we have onboard storage, we have onboard encoding, FPGAs, all of that stuff, and we have we also, like every spacecraft operator should have, you have a bench version of this that is in our offices in London, and that's where we do all of the testing, programming, and then we can uplink any changes that need to happen. And we've done that since this launch. So just winding back a little bit, we launched this satellite on January the 13th, 2022. So it's been up there for a good 2 years already. Um, so command and control, we create the the commands. They then go over to Nano Avionics, and then they uplink them. But essentially, we've got that sort of workflow, and then how do we downlink it? We work with Leaf, KSAT for downlinking in various parts of the Earth. One of the places, critical places that we don't yet have downlink capability for this satellite is across the USA. So when we capture anything across the USA, we have to wait for it to go over one of the ground stations elsewhere in the world. Um, but we are looking to capture some amazing things of the upcoming eclipse because we figured out looked at looked at the orbiting sequencing, and we have a very good option to capture the shadow of the moon in our 250-meter when it's just approaching the coastline of Mexico. So it'll be off. So it should make it really easy to see. So anyhow, hopefully you'll see us sharing that.
So that brings up a good point. You
Mm.
mentioned different ground stations, and what people don't seem to realize is ground stations are expensive. They're very, very expensive. And
This
so
dude didn't know. I didn't know.
So Kevin M asks a great question, which is, where's the funding coming from? Is it donations? Yeah, yeah. Not a lot of people
Mm.
realize that there was a tweet not that long ago from someone who launched a payload on a Falcon 9, and then they're like, We thought the launch would be the expensive part. We spent more in 1 year on ground
Mm,
stations than we did the entire launch.
yep.
Yeah. That's a business ripe for disruption is ground station coverage.
Re-
So how do you pay for this?
really, really good. Yeah, absolutely. The most critical thing for anything is how are you going to pay for this, and how are you going to continue to pay for it.
Mm.
Yeah, I had no idea that in order to downlink across the USA, you have to pay a reasonable amount per year for each satellite that you're going to be doing that with. Um, Anyhow, where we got the money from is it sort of goes a little bit back to the founding of Sen. So the CEO of Sen is a guy by the name of Charles Black. Ryan, you may have seen him on BBC 10 o'clock news over the last couple of weeks, ITV and other places, because that's really jumping ahead to where we are now, which is we launched a camera system up to the space station. So the BBC have been working with us. Several of their science journalists have been tasking us to capture certain things, so that they put into news packages. So um, they sort of have been using that content. So they were very interested in the story that I'll get to in a little bit. Where does the money come from? Get back to that. So early on, Charles created this because he had a vision for bringing these views to the public for free. That's the key thing. Now, I've been on my own mission independently before I'd even heard of Sen, to make sure that that was something that was going to be possible through my work with ISS Above, which repurposed NASA live views from the space station. Um, so we've both been sort of in this space, but definitely for many years, Charles was working on this vision, and he is a guy that persuaded people to put funding into Sen quite some years ago. So although we seem like we're a startup, in many ways we are still a startup in respect of this. We've been around for a little while because we were the first, and this is what had me discover that Sen was out there. In May of 2019, they conducted the very first live 4K Earth viewing stream from a satellite. So this was before, as far as I know, no one else had done this before. NASA had just done in 2017 a live 4K downlink. That was a interview with astronauts Peggy Whitson and Jack Fisher. But that was internal to the biggest satellite of them all, called the International Space Station. But I've been looking for this, and went out to find them, and I discovered that they have been, where we're funded from is a bunch of of individuals and space venture capitalists. So it's no. This isn't hidden. If you go to about.sen.com and you look at our leadership, there's a bunch of information that shows you who has been funding us. And that includes some folks that will be known to the folks who follow this stuff. Space Fund was an initial very early investor. Space Fund has people on it like Megan Crawford, Rick Tumlinson. Rick is a very vocal out there in the new space arena.
Rick is
Um,
very vocal is an understatement, Liam.
Yeah, just a little bit.
exactly. There you go. I thought
A
you would
little
get
vocal
the.
for
I thought
a
everyone
man shouting from the mountaintops. So,
would get the minimal. I was minimizing.
But let me be
Yeah.
clear in the best possible way. Like he
yes.
is one of the best advocates for humanity getting into space that I have ever seen. And you are listing off. It's almost like there's this secret society of like space advocates and people who just really, it's like there's this underground movement of people who just make change inside of aerospace, and you're listing them off. You're listing
Hmm.
them off. Yep.
Yeah, and not to finish. Now, every one of our investors is very special. So, I know not all of them are publicly out there on our website, but another one that is Dylan Taylor, and Dylan is the CEO of Voyager Space, and many of us have worked with Dylan because through his nonprofit. That's really where most of my connection with Dylan has been, because he founded Space for Humanity, and whenever it was, he went up on one of the early Blue Origin. No, Virgin Galactic. Was it Virgin Galactic? I'm sort of really going. No, it was Blue Origin. Um, so Dylan's been a very very close supporter of Sen, advisor to what we're doing, and very critical to our future success. Voyager Space happens to be the major, I think, the major funder for Nanoracks. So Nanoracks has a history of work on the International Space Station. That's how I first got to know them, and but they are now obviously one of the commercial entities that are building new commercial LEO space stations.
All right.
And
Speaking of the International Space Station,
mm,
how's that for a segue? You like
yeah,
that?
there we go.
There
Finally,
we
let's get.
go. Let's get there. Like, tell me what you just sent up. What's going on? So you've got these satellites that are stored
Hmm.
forward that you've been doing. They're doing these beautiful views, sending stuff
Yep.
down from space. You'll get something beautiful from the eclipse, it sounds like. But what did you just send up?
Yeah. So, do you mind if I just segue a little bit into um, why the heck I went searching for someone like Sen? And it really resides a little bit down to my ISS above gizmo, which is Raspberry Pi thing that
Which, by
lights
the way,
up.
we have used the ISS above on the show many times. We had it in our studio back when we had a Station 204 in Anaheim.
Mm,
It was the default display in the green room when we weren't up on the air. It's a cool little device. So, like, yes, I'm a huge advocate for the why, right? Like, everyone gets
mm,
into the how and everyone forgets the
yeah.
why. Why do we do these things? So, yes, absolutely, take it
So,
away.
so I'm going to launch this little video, which is showing. So from the International Space Station, what we've got up there are a bunch of cameras that NASA can feed through to two live streams. What I'm showing you here is one that's from their. It used to be from a camera system called HDev that died in 2019. That was when I first reached out to Sen, but NASA replaced it with one of they're called EHDC, Enhanced High Definition Camera, which is really a very highly specialized Nikon D4 inside of a really specialized housing. And after HDev died, which had really great capabilities, it had three different views: forward, nadir, and aft facing cameras. After that died, NASA repurposed this one, and what you're seeing here, that's Lake Tahoe, by the way. There, they basically installed a camera on the space station just off the near the starboard Sarge, the solar alpha rotary joint. I think that's what that is. And what you're seeing in the top right corner is a little bit of obstruction, because where they placed it was the only place it could go, and it's but we can put up with that blockage there. Um, but this is limited to 720p, and that's the stream. NASA streams this live down to the ground, and then it comes out. It used to come out to UStream, now it goes to YouTube, and but this is what the public has had access to pretty much 24/7 since 2020, when they finally switched this camera feed on. and it's been a stalwart. A lot of stuff is really visible, but I've always been the fly in the ear on behalf of all y'alls, everyone in the whole world. I've been luckily, folks at NASA who have control over this stuff. They sort of maybe tolerated my my connections, but my friendly request to have things improved in quality. I was presenting at the ISS R&D conference 3 times on ideas I had to get this upgraded, because it was clear that this was not always going to be a done deal. NASA at any time could choose, we're not going to do this anymore. In fact, there were times when the previous experiment, it was called an experiment, was going to get discarded because another experiment was going to go there. And I gave myself the mission to make sure that, for the benefit of the public, because I absolutely have, in my mind, proof that these views make a difference to people's lives. It has them get in action about climate change. It provides a way of experiencing themselves that is unmatched, I think, in terms of anything Earth viewing wise. So that's what NASA was providing. Very grateful for everything that NASA's done to make that available. But I'll just show you what happened. It was really last week that I am so glad that there is something else. I'm going to launch another video that is the view that we now have. So,
well, you mentioned an obstruction before. Liam, I hate to tell you, Liam. I think there might be something right there.
Yeah. A little thing. I can't explain this one away now to anyone who wants to see these views. Now, first and foremost, the ISS is a platform where its primary purpose is, one of its main primary purposes is research and human spaceflight. So that takes the most important thing. So it's going over Florida, by the way. And in just a second, when it
There's
moves past
clarity.
that little obstruction, you will actually see Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral. So
This clarity is incredible, though, Liam. Like, this looks great.
it does, doesn't it?
Ignore the obstruction. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is.
And this is 720p. I promise this is not any better. So there's Cape Canaveral.
But do you have better lensing on this? Like, what? Like, you're definitely zoomed in a little bit more than that previous shot. Like, this looks.
Yes. So what I'm saying, this is NASA. So this is absolutely, and it's the same
Okay.
zooming as that previous shot. I didn't tell you it was over Northern California. So this one is what is currently available from the same NASA feed that we've all been relying upon. And this is, hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views every month, and
Yeah.
ISS aboves that are in science centers. This is now what is being displayed to science centers.
So you're saying you can do better than this?
Oh my God! Yes. So, yeah. So, and just to explain what we're seeing here now is on the same launch that our new camera payload went up to the space station on. In the trunk was a spare pump module for the cooling system for the space station. And a few days ago, the Canadarm went into the trunk, pulled this out. I was capturing it. I thought it was the coolest thing to see. That's what I think is cool when you see the robo team taking such delicate control over something that is heavy and large. And they took it out of the trunk, and then I was thinking, where is it going? Where is it going? And I was thinking, it's heading towards where the camera system is that NASA currently has. And sure enough, its permanent position for now is exactly right underneath this camera.
Mm.
And it's not going anywhere until it's needed. So it is a spare. So it's just put here. So, and I was thinking, well, that does suck for anyone who, is inspired by these views. But hey, that's what we've got. And I was thinking, well, it's just as well. I've been working for 2 years to have a whole new camera system available to do this, and it's on the frickin' space station right now. Sorry, did I say frickin' space station? Anyway,
So I mean,
it's on the.
but that's
Yeah.
one of the things, right? Like we've talked about a lot of these things, or we've talked about a lot of um, what am I trying to say? We talked with a lot of people on the show before, and they have these grand ideas, but executing is hard.
Mm,
Executing is expensive. Getting your stuff into
yep.
space is not like, oh, I'm just going to send this to space. We're not talking to you with like, oh, here's my dream. You sent it up on CRS 30. It's in
Yeah,
space, dude.
and,
Yeah,
and and let me show you what it looks like. Do you want to see what the payload actually looks like? I'll sort of
absolutely.
run through. So I'm gonna actually gonna do a little presentation,
All right.
which I don't normally do, but here we go. And everyone says this: where slideshow? There's probably a key that does this, but I'm just gonna do that. All right, there you go. So you should be seeing that. I'm gonna jump over this thing, but really, this is about the Space TV One mission. Um, so it's going up to the space station. It's on the space station right now. It's still, as far as we know, inside the pressurized side of SpaceX 30. Um, there's many places on the space station where you can put an Earth viewing system. Um, I've got to say, I've been the one that said this is where it needs to go. So it's being hosted on this platform called Bartolomeo, and it's called Argus. That is so. Did everyone know that not everyone would know that? Yes, Airbus has been working on the International Space Station for many, many years, and in other areas as well. So when you launch something to the space station, you go through an implementation partner. So certainly for commercial entities like us, you don't go direct to NASA. You basically go through an implementation partner, which and they work actually not even with NASA directly either. They work with the ISS National Lab. So our upmass and astronaut time, a small amount of astronaut time that we need to get our payload ready for deployment, all that's run through the ISS National Lab. Um, so the payload we've got is a 4K system, as you know. It has 3 camera views, so we're somewhat getting back to how HDev used to do things. We have a nadir view straight down, a horizon view that's forward facing for the motion of the space station, and we have a docking port view. So let me just quickly go over to the a sort of a view of what these views will look like, and to give you some idea of the spatial resolution as well. Um, so, firstly, the nadir view that gives you some example of the view, and we're in the units of metric units there, 246 kilometers wide by 180 kilometers deep. And that represents around 60 meters per pixel resolution of that camera. The top right is showing the horizon view, and unobstructed, where we've placed ourselves on the Bartolomeo platform. And I'll do a little quick demo of what that platform looks like in just a second. But we have clear, unobstructed views, so we'll get sunrises, night views. We expect to be able to see aurora, other sort of phenomena, very clearly. And I've got some examples I can show you of just how good our night capture will be, which I think I'm just so excited that we can improve on the current very highly not pixelated, chip damage that is, or hot pixels that you see on the current live feed. Now, our third camera view is a little bit unusual. Now, ideally, we'd have had the ability to see the aft view, to see sunsets and such like, and the other side of the space station. But our platform that we're on doesn't give us access to that view. And well, you know, the way that we've done this, you know, our camera system is, you know, not you know, mega millions to build, so we just added a couple of cameras. So I should have mentioned, although there's 3 views, we have 6 cameras because for redundancy, we have 2 up of each camera. And the final viewpoint is that one that's pointing at the forward PMA2 Harmony docking port. So we will be able to capture for the very first time 4K views of the approach and docking and undocking events of anything to that port. So that includes obviously SpaceX Dragon, for any of the missions that are going to that forward port. Also, upcoming Boeing CFT will be great to see here, and the Sierra Space Dream Chaser as well. So all of that will be nicely visible. And let me just go. All right. So I wanted to show you sort of what the what the payload looks like. Our payload is just the thing that's on the right side, the right bottom side of that. And you can see 4 of the cameras. You can see the 2 that are pointed towards the forward docking. So yeah, let me also, this is the wrong orientation for up-down side of things. If you imagine what we're attached to is this plate called Argus. And it is just a very special metal plate, but that's very important to us because it handles heat dissipation. And this is the unit that has, we're connected into this for power and data. So we have a 1 gig Ethernet connection, so it's wired. We're not going via Wi-Fi. That's provided by the Bartolomeo platform. And the 2 cameras that are on the left side of our payload, you'll see they're at slightly different angles. And that's because we expect at some point to be moved. This platform, one of the flexible things about it is that Airbus can accept you know, new customer payloads. The payloads on this plate are installed inside the space station. So what is going to be happening in some weeks from now is that our payload will be taken out of the pressurized cargo hold of CRS-30, and the astronauts then will go through a procedure to take off the lens caps. We'll be watching when they do that. And then they'll attach it to this plate along with 3 other payloads. So this is a small payload plate, essentially. It allows Bartolomeo to accept our kinds of missions. So there's 2 other customer payloads, and then there's 1 which is the flight avionics for Argus that we plug into. That's all done by astronauts, and then they'll slide it out of the GEM airlock, and then the Canadarm will take it and then install it into the front of the space station. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking and not giving, not taking note of any questions and things, but let me just very quickly. So this is a cool tool that I've got access to here. This is called NASA Doug. It is the software that NASA uses to plan EVAs, but it's a very high resolution and high fidelity view of everything on the space station. I think this is mostly configured to how things are right now. So I'm just going to be zooming in a little bit. So we're approaching the front of the space station. Center bottom there is um, that is where Crew 8 is currently. Center top, that is where SpaceX 30 currently is. And on the left front side there is the Columbus module. And the Columbus module is where we are being placed. So this thing right here is Bartolomeo. It's a very specialized plate that allows a bunch of different experiments to be installed here, and we're going right on this edge. I guess it's the port side of Bartolomeo. So if I just position ourselves right here, where that gives us a view of, and I'm just going to sort of is this. So that's the docking port view approximately. And then, this is our forward facing view. And this is, yeah, there you go. And then obviously there's, just to go a little bit out the way there, and then we'll have the clear, unobstructed view of the ground below us as we're moving. So that's where we're going. The other thing, while I'm here, let me scoot over to where the current camera is. So that is mostly featured in the live feed from NASA. So let me just go over here and zoom in. Yeah, so there's the very infamous, is it alpha magnetic spectrometer thing? So I'm just zooming in down here. So right here by the starboard Sarge, he says, where are you, camera? Oh, there it is. Okay. So right down here is the current EHDC6 camera. So this is where NASA's current live feed is coming from. And if I just go over here a little bit, maybe, so you can see it. So you can see it sort of pointed down, and where that big obstruction it now is it's being put right in between these two storage spaces. Anyhow, that's sort of where things are right now, and hopefully I've given you a context of where things are going. So yeah, let me share a little bit more about what's going to be happening with. I'll put it back out here. Actually, I could go back to where our camera is. Oh, by the way, if everyone remembers HDev, that was right center screen here. It was on the starboard, upper starboard side of Columbus module. That's where the HDev system was, and you can see being out on the edge like that. That's what allowed it to have aft views as well as forward and nadir views. Whereas we are, we're sort of on the edge of Bartolomeo right here. Anyway,
So what are your next steps here, right? Because you're not actually you're not attached to station yet, right? You're still in the pressurized section of Dragon.
yeah,
So they need to get you attached to the station. James asks, how does the arm secure that in place? Is it forgive me, maybe you said this, but is it Canada arm that secures you, or is it an EVA that secures you?
It's Canada arm. Yeah, thank
Okay.
goodness it's not an EVA, because that would take even more astronaut resources to do it. So yeah, what happened is, so you saw I had the diagram of the Argus plate that was launched on NG-20. Little bit of it takes a lot to launch to the space station, and you have to get your slot on a resupply vehicle. And as you've heard me say, we're on a sub platform of Bartolomeo. Bartolomeo was installed several years ago. Had a few teething troubles when it first went up. But the Argus plate was the one that we were going to be attached to that goes to that. So it has the correct gizmos on it, widgets that allow Canadarm to independently just slot it in and lock it in place. But this platform was always designed to be something that allowed Airbus and their customers, of which we are one, to go on to Argus and go out to Bartolomeo, but it also allows us to replace it. So whenever there's a new payload that is going to be on Argus, they can take it back in inside the station and remove stuff and put new stuff on. So that's really how things are going. Does everyone remember what happened to NG-19? NG-19 was the Northrop Grumman Cygnus resupply vehicle earlier in 2023 that had a problem with its solar panel. Only half of it got deployed. I didn't know this, but because it made it to space, it docked to the space station, the experiments got delivered, but I missed the memo that said that actually spoiled a bunch of experiments because they didn't have power to, I think it was cooling for them. So there were a bunch of experiments that were essentially spoiled. And what that resulted in is that everything that was scheduled to go up in future launches had to be rescheduled. Um, uh, I happened to find this out because randomly, I know a lot of people at Boeing through various mechanisms. Boeing is the prime contractor with the space station, and one of them happened to be the payload readiness manager, which means they are responsible for making sure that every payload that is targeted for launch on a resupply vehicle is ready to go. And um, they were tasked with dealing with the aftermath of NG-19. And that meant we were supposed to go in December, but NG-20 was pulled forward, I think, from when it was originally scheduled to accommodate the reflying of some of those experiments, and that kicked us off. So what they launched on NG-20 was the plate. So that's been in Cygnus, which is currently still docked to the space station, and big things like that plate, there's not a lot of space on the space station for it. So it's been hanging out inside Cygnus, waiting for SpaceX 30, CRS 30 to launch, and that has our payload on it. So, and what will then happen is another random thing through all my ISS above work. I've connected with so many people at Johnson Space Center, and I guess I didn't really know what all of their roles were, but a lot of them are flight controllers. I knew that, but one of them in particular is also the person, one of the people who work with astronauts when they are working with payloads like ours. So it was a real amazing sort of aha moment for me. I mean, we all know this that the ISS program is made up of thousands of people. It's not, we look at astronauts, we look at those in mission control, but it just represents such a variety of different roles. My friend is one of the ones who literally, yeah, I hope your procedures are clear enough to make sure that when I'm talking to the astronauts that we get everything going. So like, if you mess that up, Liam,
you'll
you
never
could
hear
be
the end of it.
That's right, exactly. But
hey, Liam, do you remember step 20.A-3?
that's
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the one just before that is before you take that lens cap off, make sure that the lens is not broken. So we have one of the key things for us is the lens, the how the lens is manufactured, the coating on it to prevent browning based around the harsh environment it's in. We have really good pedigree now. These cameras have been up there for since January of 2022. And we're expected to be on the station for at least 3 years with our current payload, and hopefully we're planning an upgrade to this. So our first version that was on a communications satellite hosted payload, that one had six cameras, including pointable cameras. Now, we didn't put pointable on this version of
When,
Space TV.
when you say pointable, do you mean like pan tilt zoom?
Yeah, the little
Okay.
pan tilt zoom. I'm sort
Okay.
of doing it because our cameras are pretty small.
Okay.
But yeah, we had a mechanism that allowed them to be pan, tilt, and zoom. Not zoom. It was just pan and tilt, really. Um, and But we're looking at all of those as upgrades. And so I and while we're here, sorry, something just randomly came into my head because we did go over how we're funded. I mentioned how we're funded up to now,
Mm.
but why would people put money into us if they can't get money out?
Yeah.
Right?
ROI, right? What's the
that's,
return? What's the
that's
return?
that's the reality. Although free to the public, I would say it's been described as freemium, in that we do expect to have tastefully introduced sponsorship into the feed. So spacecraft operators, we would love the folks like especially where we're capturing things in 4K that have never been captured before, like dockings and undockings. So spacecraft operators like Boeing, Axiom through obviously their commercial connection there, Sierra Space, and oh, who did I forget? It's SpaceX. Yes. So well, anyway, that's part of where we're looking to create opportunities for sponsorship to happen. Also, giving access, not non-exclusive access to the footage. And we've made a lot of connections with spacecraft operators, and with many of them still got a few to connect with. But the idea is that there'll be an opportunity for them to have access to footage that really highlights their missions in a way that hasn't been possible, and that content can be used in their marketing and communication and outreach side of things. So that's one side. Is that the other one is simply so our current satellite um, is it, some of our customers that I could talk about are we have been tasked by organizations that are creating documentaries to capture events around the world that are a match for their content. So expect us in upcoming BBC things. I hope I'm not letting anything I shouldn't do out there. Too late, it's gone. Um, to various organizations that are doing other kinds of documentaries and news as well. So our footage is we're looking to make connections with some of the major news organizations. You can just mention any of them, and from Reuters, AP, folks like that, where we can provide very unique content that is related to what they're offering. Um, on the freemium side of it, so
I was just going
for
to ask you, like,
folks
how
like
can,
you,
yeah, how
yeah,
can we go see live views of 4K from space?
yes, thank you for asking. And so you can just go to sen.com, and that will get you started with everything about connecting with us as a member of the public. Um, if you happen to have an iPhone, at the moment where we have an iPhone app, and let me just log in. I should have done this before I joined in. Yeah, here we go. So you can't. Yeah, you can't. It's gone black. Let me go back again. All right. Yeah, here we go. So there is a Sen app that will you will see video clips that we've curated and uploaded through that. But there is one of the tabs down the bottom is called Live, and he says, and for some reason I've messed that up. Let me get back into it. There is a live tab, so that is where you will see. So on there, there's a countdown to the next live stream from ETV A1. So you can have a countdown to that and go and see what our live is like. But that's where this is the first version of our app. We're updating it. There will be an ability for you to put on and off the augmented reality overlays. So and that's a real key thing, right?
So,
So
Liam, really quickly though, is that
yeah.
app published? Because I just searched for Sen on the App Store,
No, where
and
is
I
it?
cannot. Where is it
I
exactly?
know. I've
how
got
do
the
I
same thing. Note
how do I
to
find it?
this is where you say to me, Liam, that's the worst. That's the worst experience I've had of finding an app that is available. Where is it? I think we may have to talk to Apple about. I don't know. Figure out. It used to be visible on there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if you go to send.com and register, especially on a browser on your phone, it gives you a link to the app then. Yeah,
Okay.
but it is bonkers. I totally agree that.
I think
Mm.
I think you should leverage Apple a little bit to make sure you get it on the App Store. You should be like, hey, all the technical advice you're getting
Mm-hmm.
for all mankind, that may disappear, just like this
Mm.
isn't on the App Store. So
Good idea, Jared. Yes, I think you're right. Exactly. And there is actually a very strong connection between Apple and the ISS program because anyone who has an Apple TV, you're greeted with, you're in awe of the screensavers that they have created that include about 20 clips that were created through astronaut time lapse photography. Although it doesn't look like it was done that way. It was in 2018 was when it was released at the developers conference in June, and then also released at the ISS R&D in San Francisco. So they have some great content there, and boy, can we create some great content for Apple. So good idea. If anyone has any connections, I have some connections in there, but it's always I have my dastardly plan, and what my pro-life tip to everyone who's here is just never shut up talking about what you're committed to everyone that you're connected with, and you find that there are connections that you never knew were possible, and I've got to say that's what has made this possible to go from a little gizmo that lights up when the space station is above to now being with a company. I'm still doing ISS above, by the way, everyone. That's still there, and we're working out a way to get the content over to the ISS above that I've got, which is not capable of displaying 4K
Yet.
yet.
I will say I
But,
did find it on the App
ah,
Store. Here's how
yeah.
you find it. For anyone who wants to find the app, you type in SEN, that's Sierra Echo November, space, videos from space. So SEN, videos from space, and it will be like the second result after the ads. But
There you go. Thank you.
if you search for videos from space, won't show up. If you search for SEN, won't show up. SEN videos from space, and you'll be able to find the app.
That is the real deal. Okay, yeah, I have immense gratitude for you, Jamie, for doing that. That was,
You're welcome.
there
Yep,
you go.
found it. Got it once. That's two of us now.
Yeah.
We did
So
it.
at the moment, we're still, I'd say we're relatively low on the subscribers, but we're expecting, especially when we go full hog with we're going live. So I mentioned, yeah, we've got to go through all that procedure. Astronauts taking it out, taking the lens caps off, plugging it in, shoving it out the airlock. Canada, I'm doing it in. How long is that going to take? Good question. Initially, so we were scheduled to be launched a lot earlier, but it looks like we may not be installed until the end of May,
Okay.
which is a little bit sadifying. Sadifying, is that a word?
Satisfying.
Anyway,
No, I mean that works.
I'm a little few tears here, because the Boeing CFT flight, I think, is scheduled to launch end of April, beginning, I think, May. It currently says net early first week of May, I think. And there was a chance when we first launched that we would be potentially up and running before then. You know, we'll have a week or so of testing. I didn't mention one of the key things about this, and this is mind blowing for me. So all of the live video that we get from NASA is downlinked. There is no, for the external cameras, EHDC, nothing is recorded. It is the way that it's done is it streams live from the camera to the ground. And what that means is if there's ever an LOS, to my knowledge, that content is lost. Now, what's amazing and mind blowing about our stuff is that we have up to 60 hours of 4K recording on board our payload. So that means we are immune to LOS events, and we can record all three cameras simultaneously. And there's a few things about that I'm just so excited for. Is everyone sort of, I'm sure everyone here is aware of when the space station does a little nifty maneuver called an OPM, where the station is spun around 180 degrees, but it doesn't just, go the way that you might think, which is just space station spin around 180 degrees and you're done. It does a funky little gravity assist. So it dips one side of the station down, and that causes a gravity differential, slightly higher gravity on the bit that's closer to the Earth by a few meters. And that induces a spin that then pulls it around. And I just have this thing, I want that to be captured for the benefit of humanity. I want to see that. And I've tried to capture it using their current cameras, because there are 2 live feeds that NASA gives. But I've done some pretty good captures, and you can see, oh yeah, the space station is spinning around. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half to complete that, and then but we will be able to capture the whole thing. And I just think that's cool. No astronauts harmed in that. They often do it when they're asleep. Although I did hear on a Space to Ground the other night, I think that maybe they weren't told that it was going to happen, because they did this at night in
Why do I
preparation.
keep running into the wall?
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of a little bit more subtle than that. But I'm sure if you happen to be getting up to go to the bathroom at night, and you're just sort of, you're suddenly thinking, why am I shifting around a little? It'll be a little bit of a subtle sort of rotation, but and I think I heard one of the Space to Ground conversations saying, can you make sure that you let us know that's going to happen before it happens, so that we're not surprised by that. Anyhow, that's, yeah.
Based on that, I'm going to assume that during this maneuver, they usually lose TDRS, like they're swinging around
Yes.
and they don't have their TDRS, which is the tracking and relay data satellite system, and that's
Yep.
how space station gets its downlink. Which brings up a good question. So you've got store and forward, but when you're not doing store and forward, when you're doing your live stuff, Benjamin is asking, how are you tunneling that high bandwidth back to the ground? How are you getting it back to Earth for those live views?
Yes, that is the question, right? Because my experience with all of this, TDRS is the way that things come down. So we are. So I've got to just come clean here. We are somewhat sort of separated from exactly how that's all going to happen. So we're contracted through Airbus, that is contract through ESA, and there is something called EDRIS, like TDRS. There is something called EDRIS, and so somewhere, European Space Agency has their own set of satellite communication resources, and they have their own antenna, and our contract is about 24/7 live stream, barring usual access, usual issues with downlink. with loss of signal. So we're not saying that we're going to do 100% 24/7. It'll be somewhat less than that, but we're gonna work towards that. So we'll see where it goes. Um, and so that's where I am with it right now. It's officially we're going through Idris. So what we've got is our payload. We've gone through all of the testing, and that's a big part of this. I should have mentioned just how do we do this? We don't just build the thing and it gets launched. No, for the last 2 years we've been working with Airbus Space and Defense Houston, having weekly, bi-weekly calls with their team, and we were assigned a payload integration manager. And that payload integration manager, I believe, is on the NASA side of things, because ultimately NASA has to sign off on what we are sending to the space station. So I believe at every part of the process, our requirements for the bandwidth and the availability of that bandwidth has been fully worked out with everyone who needs to do something with that. Um, Hopefully, that is the case. When we're plugged in and doing that first testing, we'll see how that goes. But logically, I'll explain how we're working. So our payload, we went through initial flight testing. I'll call it flight testing with our payload when we delivered it to Houston in November. Airbus Defense and Space and Defense has offices about 2 miles from JSC campus, and that's where our wonderful, talented software engineer was there running the tests, and that was essentially making sure our hardware was working and operating independently. But that's when we started. We were doing some tests with the Airbus. We're calling it the Airbus Cloud, and we've continued to do these tests. So back in our bench setup in our London office, there is a complete duplicate of the payload, and we've been using that to run tests against the Airbus Cloud. And that's where we've been testing the bandwidth utilization that we need, testing what happens when there's an LOS. Our payload has access to telemetry from while it's on the station, so we know exactly what the current attitude of the station is, which and this is what really makes it possible for us to do those augmented reality overlays, because we know that we have control from the space to the ground. As far as our payload is concerned, it's the master of its own destiny. It knows where it is, it knows how it's oriented, and that information is then available to us when we're doing the live stream, so we can do those augmented reality overlays, showing both the locations, cities. When we with machine learning, we're going to be, like right over my head right here are some of the wildfires that were in Quebec and reaching across and other point. I think this is Saskatchewan and stuff like that. So we can do all of that because we have access to all of that telemetry, and yeah. So how much bandwidth? I'm not sure I can disclose exactly what that is. But it's a modest amount of bandwidth based around the fact that it is 4K, 30 frames per second. So, we can adjust the frame rate as needed for different use cases. Also adjust the exposure. That's why if I was to show you, yeah. So this is blow your mind with. So firstly, I'm going to not blow your mind. So back on my screen here, this is what we have with the NASA downlink with the EHDC camera. Ryan, that is London. On the right side there, you can see, if I move my mouse, that's Heathrow. This is downtown London. Bristol was just over here, and I think you are. somewhere over. Oh, you're in Norfolk, so you're off the screen. You're in
Up
Norwich,
there a
right?
bit.
Yeah, a little bit higher up there. But
There's no
you'll
North
lights
see.
Souther's
because we
favorite
haven't invented
airport.
electricity yet.
Yeah, there you go. So what? And it may be a little bit difficult to see. Everything that's moving is obviously a city, village thing that is lit up by, and we're going to go over to Antwerp now across the channel. But you can also see that there's a bunch of what are called hot pixels. These are the CMOS chip in the Nikon D4 receives radiation damage. Mostly it's invisible during daytime, but you can see it if you know where to look. So everything that is a static thing, and you'll see, they're going in and out of visibility. But those are, it's essentially chip damage, and very high exposure is used to get that. So now what I'm going to show you is what we can do. So if I find my mouse again, here is the mouse. All right, go back to here. Sorry about this. I'm going to get right there, and I'm going to show you what we can do with a pass over Tokyo. If I can find Tokyo, come on, come on, come on. Sorry about. Here we go. Yeah, it is such a. All right, Tokyo. Tokyo
Whoa.
from, oh my heck, that is just mind blowing. So, and I want to show you this one. This was one where we had a really incredible tracking. So this is real time, and it's like we're using the satellite as a pan tilt zoom thing. You'll see that there are some things we're working out as far as the exposure and color balance there. Um, but this is, although it may look static, it is actually moving. In fact, there was something that was visible as a flash across the lakes that are sort of just right of center there a second ago. But and let me show you. So this satellite is one where the 10-meter resolution camera is pointing at exactly the same spot as the 250 meter. So I'm going to show you that same view, but from, so this was exactly the same time. This is the 250-meter resolution. So, and you'll see that there are some lightning storms that are visible in the just right of top center. And so this, and you'll see that there's some other artifacts in here. I think we can see some banding on there. But you can literally see clouds that are lit. I think this was probably third quarter moon, or maybe getting close to full moon, so that the clouds that are there were visible. But anyway, hopefully, I don't know where I was going with that. I just wanted to impress the world with the kind of live night views that are going to be possible.
Yeah, I think the general community says, "Wow," right? Like that's going to be pretty incredible. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Hmm. I know we've gone long, haven't we? I haven't even looked at the timing here, but
Oh, it's fine. Like the show length is however long the show needs to
yeah,
be.
that's
You know what I
the
mean? You know what I
great
mean?
thing about Android. Yes, there will be an Android version of the app. It will come out very soon. So sorry about that not being there right now.
There was a comment earlier talking about the app. Let me see if I can find it. It was from Xwood. He says the project is so cool, but honestly, installing another app doesn't feel worth it. Like a lot of people just don't want to put more apps on their phone,
Mm,
and this is
yeah.
a cool project. But I think it's like, can you just do an H.265 stream on a page or an aggregator somewhere? But you do that right on the Sun webpage. Yes.
Yeah, on the SEM webpage, so you don't need to install an app. You can just go through the app itself. Is so the web version of this. We always will have that work well for the mobile environment. But let's face it, 4K on this, literally on this, is not the best way to experience 4K, right? Just unless I want it on a big screen.
Right.
And so yeah, there will be, so you can definitely, we are working on having like Fire TV apps, Apple TV apps, so it will be available there. The key thing though for our revenue model, getting back to the that important part of this is the revenue model means that we need to have access. We need to have some level of control over the content and where it's displayed. So although it's publicly available, we expect anywhere that it's going to be presented in a commercial sort of environment to lots of people, that's where we'll need to sort of work out how that works. And I've got to say, we are starting at a certain place and we're going to end up at a certain place. What I mean by that is that there's an opportunity to work that out from here. We have ideas. For instance, we're looking to have this featured in science centers. Who is involved in a local science center that has an ISS above? Yeah, there
Only
you
there
go.
was
So I will
someone.
mention. It sounds like
I'm
you
not
have one. So
sure.
Jared's at the Columbia Memorial Space Center in Downey, and they've had an ISS above there for some time. And
Yeah, we still do
mm,
have it. It's in
mm,
our model of the interior of the Columbus module,
yeah,
and it is one of our highlights of that area.
mm,
Whenever we introduce it, especially to field trips with kids, it is often kids standing in front of it for 5, maybe 10 minutes, trying to figure out where they are in the world, and also just kind of in awe of seeing the Earth from space in real time. And I mean, that's a lot for us, and probably most of our viewers. It is probably a everyday occurrence that we see Earth from space at some point in real time. But
yeah.
for most folks who don't think about space all the time like we do, it's certainly a treat and a delight for them to get that experience. And it's very nice to have that. And thank you for delivering that. I feel like there are certain entities that should be doing that to begin with, but it's still good to have at least you
Hmm.
doing that.
Yeah, and I would say just as well, we've got something that will keep that thing going because the current obstruction that's now in there for the foreseeable future will have students. I would say slightly less awed.
I don't think so.
You
I
don't?
think the
Okay.
obstruction adds to it because it really helps. I don't know what it is, but when I see something there, it helps remind me that that's on a space station. That's part of
Yes.
a space station. Most of the time, the kids, they might be, the kids and adults may think, oh, well, it's just a view of the Earth.
Yeah.
So this could have been pre-recorded at any
Yeah.
time. I think once you add in that element of
This.
like a actual
Mhm.
static thing that you are attached to as you
Yeah.
ride along in orbit, I think it adds. To me, it adds to it. It doesn't detract from it.
Yeah.
But,
I
but
would.
Jared, that's too much.
I
That's
would
too
have
much.
said before. I'm with you 100%. I wanted it there. I totally wanted it there. But now that we've got this, my my heartfelt thing is that there is a loss here with what these views mean. It's hard to um, I curate these clips now, so NASA doesn't. The clips are just provided free to the public. Thank you for doing that, NASA. Never any complaint about that. Um, and but further use cases of that stream were something that was left up to the public essentially. And I was one of those people with ISS Above You. If you go on a Twitter, go to ISS Above You, you'll see that I've captured many clips, and a lot of them were used by news media. So they'd approach me, when I had some great views showing from the space station. They take them. Um, it's a little bit. I'm not quite sure in the context of that use case that large an obstruction will be acceptable.
Oh no,
So,
I
mm,
definitely agree with that.
mm,
What they had before, when you could see the solar arrays rotating through very slowly, and then there was just that little bit of
yeah,
I don't know what part exactly that was
no,
on
I can show
station.
you. So
Um,
I have, yeah, it's this version here. So this is what the
yes.
obstruction used to be,
I'm
and
trying. There we go.
yeah, and that's showing Monterey down on the bottom center there, leading into a view of the Bay Area. San Jose, and then across the Sierras. Yeah, this was the obstruction, in my view, enhanced the connection um, in a way, and so and I don't think that we're not going to have that in the 4K stream, but we'll have other ways to make sure that the viewers that experience our 4K from the space station will appreciate it's coming from a place where human beings are actually, they have the ability to see the view out the cupola at that moment. Um, so, so I just randomly noticed a question: how many dead pixels you're expecting to get per year? Um, I wish I could have a full answer to that. I would say from seeing the um, the the raw images from our current camera, we will have um, sort of hot pixels, pixels that have been entirely damaged through to pixels that have reduced capability. Um, but clearly, what we've got right now with a 2-year-old camera in space, it's certainly a manageable amount of camera chip damage, and certainly for the space station version, we can send up new hardware.
If you
Um,
want, I actually know the CEO of Blackmagic, and we were talking about this exact issue
mm,
of like radiation issues in space. You can see it just rip through the sensor, destroy pixels.
mhm.
He has a couple really clever ideas on how to mitigate that, because at the end of the
The
day, it's the pixel misrepresenting like what it
mhm.
thinks its values are, because the
Yeah.
radiation has screwed up basically the three numbers it gives off, right? But if
Yes.
you can just re-black balance the camera and re-white balance the camera,
Yeah.
you can say, oh, well, this is off by this value, offset that, and
Yes.
then effectively get that pixel back to a
Yeah.
point.
So what you're talking about, and this is, I didn't go into this, but I'm glad you brought it up. So I come from an astronomy background. Um, I'm not an expert in astrophotography, but I know a lot of people who are, and I've dabbled in it. So what you do if you're doing a long exposure with a CCD camera that's designed for astrophotography, they're often cooled, and you go through a process before you start your night's operations where you do something that's called a dark frame subtraction. It's where you capture the view with your lens cap on at the same exposure settings and field of view that you will be doing for your actual live captures. And what that gives you is, in this case, they're still images, but so you record, maybe a 60-second image on your CCD with the lens cap on. That gives you a bias frame that you then, and that's basically exactly what you were saying, Jamie. You then subtract that from your real captures when the lens cap is off. So, um, and we couldn't do that before. So NASA's camera, because it's custom firmware that is on a Nikon D4 that's on the space station, and all we can deal with, someone could have created something to do that on the using the firmware on the camera, but I don't know if they have the capacity to upload new firmware to the cameras. From what I understand, I don't believe they can. But for the first time, I think we have the capacity to do that. So exactly what you said, you created where we're going with it. We can do stuff on the station before it's even transmitted down. So we can do all of that. I'm sure Grant won't mind me mentioning this. So, did I mention that I've had a passion to do this since 2016, and I presented at the ISS R&D 3 times on these ideas, and did I mention them? Anyway, in 2017, um, I had the whole senior leadership of Blackmagic Design uh, come with me to Johnson Space Center. And by the way, Grant is he is like a super expert with everything to do with Saturn V and the engines. Just unbelievable. Oh, sorry. You're muted, I think. Are you muted or am I muted?
No, it's me. If it's aerospace or if it's video, Grant just
Ye-
absolutely, it's crazy how much he knows.
100%.
Yeah.
So I took them there because my dastardly plan was that to see whether Blackmagic Design could create a space-borne, a space-capable camera, studio camera with its massive capabilities for exposure, dynamic range, and all of that stuff. And so that was something where we had the whole team, the project managers, and it was right after NAB in 27. I think they're pretty sure it's 2017.
Mhm.
So they all came down to Johnson Space Center and had a look around there. So maybe something will be possible in the future with them. Keep plugging away, and
Oh, I will. I
uh,
talk with him about this all the time.
yeah,
Like
I
I assume
was.
it was like Darren, Grant,
Hmm.
Tim, the whole crew. Yeah, they
There you
like
go.
they're fantastic people. They're super passionate about this stuff,
Mm,
and they do like their engineering is just crazy, right? It's like
yep.
I don't know how else to describe them other than like the SpaceX of video. And so it would
Yes.
be really cool to see the SpaceX of video doing like things in space. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's not impossible that could still happen, and
Hmm.
I think it's a great connection there. And I know a lot of their stuff. I use their stuff. The stuff I'm doing to switch between screens here, do this is on their hardware. So I've used their switches and things uh, from the very first version of the TVS. There, if you remember that thing. There you go, live color correction with DaVinci Resolve. That's
The
awesome.
volunteers
I,
tribute.
yeah, I think we're. So I'm in a position now with Sen where, yeah, that there's this is the bit that is a bit like, although we've been around for a number of years, we're in a new mode where I would say that we're bringing something disruptive to the entire world of Earth observation, in a from a news perspective, from a perspective of allowing people real time access to a view of the Earth and other places. We plan to go to other places, um, so
Hmm.
on our roadmap is other every Leo destination, especially that has human beings on it. So that would be Orbital Reef, the Space Lab from Nanoracks and such like, all the way to Cis Luna eventually. So we are at the moment our systems, they would not tolerate, I think, the ultra high radiation environment of Cisluna, but we are working to get there.
You
um,
just need some sort of gateway to get you from here to there.
yeah, there you go, gateway to get us from here to there. And you know maybe we're looking to get on some intuitive kind of
Hmm.
machine
Hmm.
that
That sounds, yeah,
that might
sounds nice.
be heading that way eventually as well. Um, but really, all the
Hmm.
above, and also creating some. This is the disruptive side of it. With what we've got, with the control that we have over our payload, right through to the ground, and how it's then represented out, I expect us to come up with some really bonkers, crazy, wonderful ways that the public can engage with what we're providing. So
I have a
can't really
question.
tell anything more about it because it's just bonkers, crazy ideas at the moment. But
You
um,
mentioned, news organizations being able to use this, but I would argue that for news to be able to realistically use this, they need kind of total coverage of the earth all the time, right? Because you don't
mhm,
know where news is going to happen. You don't know when there's
yeah,
going to be a volcano eruption or whatever the case may be. And if you're not orbiting over that moment in time, you don't get to catch that moment
hmm,
in time.
yeah.
So, do you have plans to add additional um, views around the Earth to capture more of the Earth concurrently, or are you kind of limited to just the existing orbital platforms and where they're located?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. So between now and 2025, we have plans to launch. So 2025. That's just getting present to how soon that is. Um, could be the end of 2025. So we have plans for four other um, Earth observation platforms of our own design. So we've started off with nano avionics, and that's been a great way for us to learn how to do things. We've had some really great examples of odd challenges and failures, but generally that's allowed us to really iterate our design. So yeah, we're looking to have our the Sen camera payload worked into other satellite designs. So these would still be our own satellites. So although we are planning hosted platforms, so yeah, when Axiom Space has has the Axiom Space Station, their initial versions going up, we are definitely working on that option for us to pay to be there, and other methods of doing it. But beyond that, we already have ETB A1, which is entirely our own 16U satellite. We're actually looking to launch smaller versions. So we're designing smaller ones, maybe 8U, up to bigger ones as well. So that's definitely on our roadmap. So yeah, what you said is exactly true. That for us to be here and now present with whatever's going on, we want to have constant revisit rates, ability to do this kind of thing. We're not setting ourselves up to be like the standard kind of Earth observation service, where like Planet and others, they may be providing targeted downlinking of high resolution still imagery. But we do have plans. Our next iteration will go down to 2 meter resolution, and then it will be more critical to have very tight control over the pointing accuracy and how we're doing that. And for many of the use cases, typically a still image is all you need. But we are about um, I certainly personally have always felt the live nature of video from space is something that can make the biggest difference to the public. So ultimately, that is really where the use case goes to. It's about the public and them being inspired by it. And news media is a very important way that can be done. Uh, the news media has utilized some of our footage already. I think last year there were some wildfires over the island of Rhodes. That I think just happened to be the first example. Um, I can't remember. I think it was Sky TV. They used one of our clips showing the wildfire fire smoke from the island, and we've done a lot of revisits since then. So, but good question. Hopefully that gave you that answer. So I expect to be over um, at Cape Canaveral again for further launches. SpaceX still has um, the great market for allowing small operators like us a space in their transport emissions, where we pay for a little bit of the payload space and we get to be deployed with all of those. So thank you, SpaceX.
So if it's all right with you, Liam, what I'd love to do is go into our member-only show after this and just let the members just ask you
Mm,
questions point blank, just straight to you, and you can just rapid fire answer any questions they may have with
sure.
regards to like anything you're allowed to talk about. I think
Hmm.
that'd be a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
then, in the future, as you're launching more and more of these, reach out. I think this is really interesting, and I'm really excited to see the system go online and actually be able to watch, live views from space again, kind of like HDev used to offer.
Yeah.
And you can do it now, but it's not the same. HDev brought was magical, right? Because it was just
Mm,
this like, there was something nice about it that was just kind of lost when they ended the experiment. And so it's nice to see you guys bringing that back
Hmm.
effectively.
Yeah. Well, so I'll finish firstly, but yeah, definitely let's go into that after show soon. But what I'm also, if you can switch over to my screen share at the moment, I sort of want to give you a final view. I'll restart this one. So um, and I'll pause it right here. So ETV A1 was passing right over Cape Canaveral the day before we launched, and we launched on Slick 40, SLC 40, right here.
Hmm.
And it's hard to see. I'm waving it around it. That's the VAB, and I was on OSB 2 just over here. Um,
It's about
so
3.2 miles, if I remember right.
there you go. Yeah, it's a fair distance.
Yeah.
I've been to launches where they're a lot closer, and the hotel I was staying at when we're down there is the Space
Courtyard.
Bar,
Yeah, Courtyard Marriott.
Courtyard Marriott
I
Space
know
Bar.
it well. It's got the space bar on top. Actually, if you're ever visiting Cape Canaveral and you want to know where to go to get a great view of a launch, the Courtyard Marriott, because they've got the space bar up top. So you just go up top, grab a drink, they pipe in countdown net audio, and off you go. And by the way, when we go into our member show, I'm going to ask you about Space to Ground 2. You'd mentioned telemetry, so I want to know like marrying up with SG2, one SG2, and then marrying up with like telemetry and your augmentation system. And like, I got a bunch of other questions of like how you can
Great.
invigorate and enhance an experience.
Yeah. So thank you, and thanks for having me on here, and thanks everyone for being here for the story I've shared. And I really want to finish by 100% acknowledging what NASA provided from their first when the live stream started of HDev. It was April 30th, 2014, and that's what inspired me. I know it's inspired hundreds of millions of people since then. So and I hope with where I'm coming from and where I know Sen is coming from, we're going to be a great additional way where people of the earth get to experience themselves from space.
I'm excited. Like, there
Hmm.
was something truly epic about HDev,
Hmm.
as I mentioned, and like
Yeah.
you said, it started with NASA, and we take NASA for granted, right? Because like we get all these beautiful free views from space. Where else do you get that? Who else
Hmm.
offers that? And
Yeah.
so, it's going to be great to have something back, free or not, just something
Hmm.
back where we can be inspired and just look at our planet in another way.
Yeah.
All right, the conversation will continue on our post show for all of the members of tomorrow who helped to make this epic show happen week after week, month after month. As Liam was kind of talking about, this stuff does take money, right? Like, it costs for him, it costs money to, and for Sen, it costs money to launch it. It costs money to, bring up the ground station coverage so that you can, get feeds, even store and forward, whatever the case may be. Anything we do in life costs money. And these are the people who help to contribute to this show to make it happen week after week, month after month. And, we've been going strong for, well over a decade. And I really appreciate every single person in this list. Uh, Truly, you guys help make everything happen. And if you loved this show, right after this, if you look in the description of the YouTube video, we've got a member show coming up. And like I said, that's where I'm going to be asking Liam some of those questions about like, well, some future, just nerdy technical questions and going. Also, I want to go into the cameras a little bit and the lensing and whatnot, if he's allowed to. And if you want to just like directly ask him questions, just like full send, we're just gonna let him go. We kind of let him go on the show, but like let's go even deeper. If you want to go even deeper, that's the place to do it. Is in our membership show. So again, thank you everyone so much for joining. Ryan, I think you said 3 words this entire show. It was fantastic, and all 3 words were great, and they were all about your
I
hopes.
have some things for the member show. We're fine. I'm saving it
Oh,
for the
great.
people who pay us money.
I do still have, we never really got to use this, I don't think, but like we do still have this graphic.
It's because it's sold out.
Oh, so
Because it's
sorry. Sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sold out.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Do you even
Sold
have
out.
one?
I have one. I have one. It's far away now, but I do have one.
All right. On that note, thank you everyone so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed us bringing back Liam. By the way, I don't know if you know, I think you're the first interview that we've brought back since around COVID, right?
Ooh,
Is that right? Because we
wow.
broke our
Yep.
ability to do interviews, and then like we lost the studio, and so
Hmm.
I knew that you would be a really great guest, and you'd be really easy to interview, and you were. You just run with it. It's fantastic. So you were
Okay.
one of our first. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to do a lot more of these. Everyone asked to bring the interviews back, and Liam, you were a really great first
Wow.
interview. Thank you so much for taking time out of your
Honored to
Saturday
be
to make
here.
this happen. All right,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Liam, I will shoot you a link to the member show in a moment. Everyone else, we'll see you over there.
Different show. Okay. I'll look
Different
out for that.
show.